ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ulrich Ahle. I'm CEO of the Gaia-X organization, and I'd like to give you an overview of the strategy of Gaia-X, of why Gaia-X is needed, what Gaia-X is, and also the membership benefits, because we are a member-driven organization. Let me start with why we started all these activities and why Gaia-X is needed. Some 40 years ago, the industry started to exchange data between different organizations in a one-to-one mode, as you can see here in the left side of the picture. And then we've been working for the last 2 decades, at least 2 decades, on creating digital platforms, connecting few to few, even if this few are thousands, but still with a lot of effort to connect participants to the different digital platforms. And in Europe, GDPR paved the way to manage also personal data on such digital platforms. Now we are paving the way to create data spaces, as shown on the right side, with a target to connect many to many, to connect millions to millions. And with this ambition, it is not possible anymore to have manual effort to connect participants to a data space. So we are looking for an automated compliance, as we call it, for the ability to automatically identify a participant. And this participant can be a natural person, can be a company, an organization, can be an IT system, can be a single sensor. So to automatically identify the participant and to authorize the participant. So to define what someone who would like to provide data to a data space is allowed to do, or what someone who would like to use data from a data space. And data spaces are about data sharing. And again, with the ambition to connect millions to millions, we need to automate this. And that's done by standardization and by creating something we call trust. So to enable the automatic identification and authorization of participants. In Europe, we are doing this based on the European legislation. This means the Data Governance Act, the Data Act, and also the upcoming AI Act, because there's a clear coexistence between data spaces providing trustful data and artificial intelligence solutions which need data. And today, the majority of the available data is not yet accessible. All the large language models, or most of the large language models available today, are based on freely accessible data. But the majority of the data, like with an iceberg, the majority is still underwater and needs to be freed up to be accessible also for AI solutions. And you see here an asterisk in the blue boxes describing the European legislations. For a lot of our members, global accessibility of data is of utmost importance. And therefore, these European legislations, which are valid for Europe, must be replaced by regulations, by legislations from regions outside of Europe. This is also a task we are working on, and I will come to that later. So our main mission is to come from data sharing between 2 single organizations with, for example, electronic data interchange EDI, coming to a shared economy, to sharing data, to exchanging data using data spaces. And here, the cloud and edge service providers and the cloud services as such are playing an important role, because exchanging data means to transfer data, to process data, and also to store data. Because no data can replicate or transfer itself without running a service of any kind. And the algorithm to process, to store, to transfer the data can be embedded in the data itself, but still requires an external service to be interpreted and to be executed. And this cloud is someone else's server, unless you run your own infrastructure on premise in your own building. But as we are targeting to exchange data between different organizations, it doesn't work to have a data center in the cellar protected by a firewall without access from outside. And the existence of this underlying cloud service providers, of this underlying ICT services, makes those data operations possible. Again, to process, to transfer, to store data. And that's what we are combining. You see on the left side the X of the Gaia-X approach, and we are bringing together two before separated worlds. The world of the data ecosystems, described by or implemented by the data spaces, and the world of the infrastructure ecosystems provided by cloud service providers, and both belong together. And to underline this coexistence and the dependencies, we have created last year a slogan which is called "Data does not flow on rainbows." So, which means no cloud services, no data spaces. There's a clear dependency. This closes a bit why is Gaia-X needed? Because we are creating data spaces based on a federated cloud infrastructure to be able to exchange data between different organizations. Now coming to the question, what is Gaia-X? And we are a non-profit association, a private non-profit association, which is funded by the fees of its members. And despite there are other statements in the market, the aim has never been to create a European cloud, but to provide standards, specifications, labels, and a verification framework to help solve economics of data dilemmas, bringing trust and interoperability within data changes. And you see on the right side this ecosystem dilemmas with lock-in effect to certain vendors, with missing trust, with quite high costs sometimes, with manual contracts which need to be signed and enabled. And Gaia-X is protecting the data exchange from these dilemmas. That's why we used here the umbrella. And we will come a bit later to the digital clearinghouse, which is implementing this Gaia-X specifications. And organizations can already benefit from the open source work we did within the Gaia-X community and together with our members. So clearly the myths which are in the market, Gaia-X is not a European cloud. We are not a European hyperscaler. We are not receiving public funding. The work of the association is financed by the membership fees of its members. And we are not a bureaucracy, a paper-driven organization. There is a lot of functionality of open source software available which can be implemented. And this underlines our vision to enable trusted, decentralized digital ecosystems. And that is the vision from the very beginning. From the beginning, when Beginning of 2021, originally 11 French and 11 German organizations created the Gaia-X AISBL, headquartered in Brussels, in Belgium. And out of this 22 founding members, we grew in the meantime to more than 250 members, not only from Europe, but from all over the world. Also from the US, from Japan, from China, from Korea, and so on. And we are implementing this vision by creating a de facto standard to enable federated and trusted data infrastructure ecosystems. We are doing so by developing a set of specifications, rules, policies, and a verification framework. And to do all of this, we have aligned with our board of directors, and I will come later to the structure of our ecosystem on an overall strategy. A strategy which fits in a nutshell onto one page, and which is starting with the end user adoption strategy. The end users are the most important members in our ecosystem because they are defining the requirements, but they're also providing the market for the service providers. Therefore, it is our target in this year to further increase the number of real reference stories, of best practices, which show the benefits and the value and the contribution of Gaia-X to solving end users' challenges and to improve their business processes. We are working very intensively together with policymakers who are supporting and advocating for Gaia-X or the Gaia-X initiative in Europe. And as mentioned before, we're working together with cloud service providers, with service providers coming from Europe, but also with service providers coming from outside of Europe, also the so-called hyperscalers, because a lot of our members are customers of the hyperscalers, and for a lot of our members, global accessibility of data is of utmost importance. And here, the hyperscalers are a clear enabler of this global accessibility. And we have a network of hubs, and I will come to that also later. We have the target to further increase the hubs network, also in countries where they are not yet established. Then we have the domain to make this happen, means to have market-ready technology available. Here we are intensively working together with our partners in the Data Spaces Business Alliance, to name them the International Data Spaces Association, the FIVER Foundation, and the Big Data Value Association, but also with our free and open source software community. So an open source community which is supporting and really creating the implementation of the software. There are a lot of European and member state funded projects which help us to further develop this available technology. We are providing regular deep dives to educate people, to train people, and also validating the so-called powered by Gaia-X. I mentioned the globalization strategy before because we are more than convinced that an approach like Gaia-X cannot be sustainable on the long run if it's not accepted and adopted on a global scale, because data do not stop on borders of a country, on borders of a continent. Data are global. And for a lot of our members, they are serving global markets, they have global supply chains, and the data supporting their business critical processes must be available on a global scale. And here, hubs outside of Europe are helping us, like, for example, in Japan, in Korea. and also global events. I'm just coming back from India, for example, are helping us to spread the word about Gaia-X and the approach of data spaces. And also analysts are helping us to spread the word about the interoperable data spaces based on a federated cloud infrastructure as they guide their customers and inform their customers and train their customers and consult their customers, taking data spaces into consideration. And finally, this will lead to a further growth of the Gaia-X ecosystem by demonstrating the benefits to the members, by addressing the different member groups. We do have large corporates, innovative startups and SMEs, developers and universities for their technology and innovation excellence. And this will finally result, as I said, in a further growth in more members within Gaia-X. And all of this is driven by a growth and service-oriented team providing thought leadership to the market. Going a bit more into the technical details. Interoperability is one of the core elements of the creation of data spaces. And we are using here a layered model of 4 different interoperability layers, starting with the technical, the semantical interoperability, organizational, and also legal interoperability. And let me introduce 2 core elements of Gaia-X. The first one is the Gaia-X compliance document. Here, the policies and rules, how data spaces are created and operated, are described. And this document can be implemented using different technologies, so it's technology agnostic. And it is addressing the top 2 layers, the legal and the organizational interoperability. And then we have Gaia-X technical compatibility specifications, architectures, and so on, addressing the semantic and technical interoperability. And these documents are rule agnostic. So this technology is able to implement different rules, different compliance documents. And both are implemented using a tool which is called the Gaia-X Digital Clearinghouse. This clearinghouse is implementing the rules which are described in the compliance document, following the architecture described in the technical compatibility specifications. All of this is open source, so it's available for free for everyone forever. Maintained by an open source community. And this approach is worldwide adoption ready. I underlined the necessity of the global availability of data. And the first version of the compliance document, which was published at the end of 2024, is still reflecting the European legislation, but we are now working on the globalization of this approach. And with this, we are supporting European as well as non-European national trust service providers. And the overall focus is on end-user services. We are not doing this for the sake of digitization, for the sake of data. We are doing this to support the business-critical processes of the end users. End users coming from manufacturing, coming from energy, from mobility, from healthcare, from different domains. And coming back to this compliance document, there are different security levels, different conformity levels described in the document, and they are shown here. It is, as I mentioned before, the first version of this compliance document is based on European legislation. It contains 62 criteria, and these criteria are implementing different levels of conformity. The basis is a standard compliance. which is reflecting standards like ISO standards, for example, not yet reflecting European legislation. But the levels 1, 2, and 3 are more and more reflecting EU legislation, reflecting policies and rules defined by our members. And the highest level, the Gaia-X label level 3, can only be fulfilled by providers having their headquarters in Europe and not being under the influence of non-European organizations, and with this, not being under the influence of non-European legislations, like the Cloud Act or the Patriots Act in the US. And again, this is the first step. We are working on replacing part of this content of the compliance document by legislations coming from other regions, enabling global interoperability. And here I have now a picture showing how all of this works together. And you can see on the left side that the Gaia-X technical compatibility is obtained by using this before mentioned technical compatibility specifications with architecture, with data exchange documents where it is described in an ontology, plus a TCK, so a technical compatibility kit, and the before mentioned open source software. And with this, we are enabling semantic and technical interoperability. And Gaia-X compliance is obtained by using the compliance document and its contents, which is implemented by the Gaia-X Digital Clearinghouse, with this enabling legal and organizational interoperability. And then there are a lot of projects implementing these concepts, implementing this technology provided by Gaia-X, but also provided by our partners. Some of them I mentioned before, to enable interoperable data spaces based on a federated cloud infrastructure. And this Gaia-X digital clearinghouses, they are connected. So we have in the meantime 11 of these clearinghouses up and running, provided and operated by different providers from Europe, but also the first one by Entity Data, operated in Japan, so outside of Europe. And you see on the right side, we have several more in deployment or in the pipeline. And with this clearinghouses are enabling the collaboration also not only within a data space, but across different data spaces, as illustrated here on this page, where we had before data ecosystems separated, organized in silos, and having, for example, energy here. The energy domain is talking about the sector coupling, so bringing different domains together, and this is enabled by Gaia-X digital clearinghouses. And I mentioned before that we are bringing together the different worlds, and that's why we have this X in Gaia-X, bringing the world of the data ecosystems together with the infrastructure ecosystems, using, as shown on the right side, the 4 different levels of Gaia-X conformity. And here we are working on the creation of agreeing on certain so-called credentials, which are common across data spaces from different verticals. So from manufacturing, from mobility, from energy. And then there are, and this middle layer is enabling the interoperability between the different data spaces. And then we have on top additional policies and rules. They are described by the different data spaces itself, because here a clear domain know-how is necessary, We are talking here about a role called the Data Space Governance Authorities, and they are describing their rules specific for the different data spaces, how data are shared and used in, for example, in a manufacturing data space. But still this middle layer, this as we call minimal interoperability credentials, are very important to enable on the one side the interoperability between different data spaces. And imagine there is a smart city data space in the future in the city of Brussels, which would not be able to communicate with a smart mobility data space, with a smart energy data space. Then we would have done something wrong. And the role of this minimal interoperability credentials is to enable this minimal interoperability between the different data spaces. And to enable this, a lot of investment is required. Investment done by the end users, but also investment done by member states or from the European Commission providing support for these development projects and for developing the concepts and the projects. We have started to create an overview of this publicly provided funding. You see here several member states which have programs for data spaces. And also the European Commission is putting more than 1 billion into the creation of interoperable common European data spaces. In total, and this list is not finished yet, we are at about 2.6 billion. And as I said before, data does not flow in rainbows. So we need also this underlying infrastructure. There was created a project, an approach called an important project of common European interest for cloud infrastructure services. And here another 1.2 billion as funding is provided, which is matched by roughly 1.5 billion of private investment. So a lot of money is taken into the hands in Europe. But data spaces are not just implemented in Europe. Data are global, and we have now first regions outside of Europe which identified the potential of data spaces. And to give you one example, China, end of 2024, has announced the strategy to create 100 trusted data spaces within the next 4 years till end of 2028 in 5 different domains: enterprise data spaces, industry data spaces, city data spaces, personal data spaces, and cross-border data spaces. And you see here the expansion and the international cooperation on data spaces is important also from the Chinese government point of view. All of this is driven by the National Data Administration from China, and it is impressive. It is quite impressive to see how fast they have learned and how they have defined an implementation plan to make this reality. So this gives a bit an overview of why data spaces are needed and what Gaia-X is doing and contributing to the creation of interoperable data spaces. And now let's have a look in which organizational structure we are doing this. Gaia-X is an association with members, and these members are organized in a General Assembly meeting, which elects a board of directors. At the moment, we do have 24 members in this board of directors, and it is advised by a governmental advisory board. Here we have members from European member states. In total, 16 governments are represented in this governmental advisory board, plus the European Commission. And the board of directors itself is defining and appointing the management board. And this management board, together with the community, is organizing the work in our ecosystem, which is structured mainly in 3 different committees: the Policy and Rules Committee, where in different sprints in agile methodologies, the policies and rules are developed and defined. Then on the right side, we have the Technical Committee, where the implementation is managed, where the software development is organized, and the adoption of both of it, of the policies and rules and the technology, is managed in the Data and Services Business Committee. So here we have the interaction of the service providers, of the different hubs we have, of the Lighthouse project we have, and also of the different verticals we are addressing. We call these verticals ecosystems, and they are organized in so-called sounding boards. And here you see a bit more a detailed structure for this Data and Services Business Committee. It is led by Thomas Hahn from Siemens. So these chairs are elected, and we have then always a member of our management team working together with the chair or the lead of these organizations. And as mentioned before, hubs, ecosystems, lighthouses and projects, service providers, and where required, task forces. The Policy Rules Committee is working in sprints, and the Technical Committee also has a substructure working on different technology topics. And all of that is supported by our Gaia-X open source and software community, a global community. Going a bit more detailed to some of these elements. First one is the role of the Gaia-X hubs. They have the role, and we have in the countries where we have hubs, 1 hub per country, with a task to connect local stakeholders, to create ecosystems, to consolidate their requirements, but also to spread the word about results, about solutions which have been created on a global scale, and bring it into their local country-specific ecosystem. With this, streamlining and coordinating the work in our ecosystem. And today, we have 22 of these hubs, 19 in European countries. In the meantime, also since last year, in countries which are not part of the European Union, like Switzerland and Norway, but also in countries outside of the European continent, Japan, Korea, US, and you see there are several more in the pipeline. The second dimension in the DSBC, in the Data and Service Business Committee, is the domain of the different ecosystems. Others would call it verticals, industries. We call it ecosystems. And here we are addressing in total 16 of these different ecosystems where people, organizations are working on the creation of interoperable data spaces. Second dimension are the projects which have undergone our endorsement program. In total, just in Europe, there are roughly 190 development projects for data spaces, establishing interoperable data spaces, and we have started to endorse some of these projects in three categories: qualified projects in their early phase of implementation, lighthouse projects, which are still in the implementation phase, which have the potential to be a reference for other projects. And then the highest category are the so-called lighthouse data spaces which have finished their first phase of development and are now in operation. And we have actually 4 qualified projects, 18 lighthouse projects, and 2 so-called lighthouse data spaces. Some of you might have heard of Gaia-X, a data space in the manufacturing industry, which is in operation since end of 2023, so since more than 1 year now. And then the Pontus-X data space family with data spaces in different domains, in different ecosystems like mobility, aeronautics, or agriculture. And if you remember the strategy to talk about end-user success stories, we call them use case testimonials. And in the meantime, we have quite a lot of this use case testimonials, which can be used as reference for reference telling, to create inspirations, to show examples how data spaces are created, operated, and how they are creating benefits for the end users. And just to mention a few, there is here a French-Korean professional mobility tool coming from Korea with the challenge that there were difficulties faced by the Korean professionals seeking international employment opportunities and by international organizations aiming to efficiently find qualified Korean candidates. The solution is the implementation of tools and protocols enable Korean professionals to share their data to be matched with job data and recommendations by AI services while remaining GDPR compliant and while utilizing the individual consents. And as always, the added value through Gaia-X is the aim to add trust to all these data exchanges and with this to enable these data exchanges. So a use case from our Prometheus-X lighthouse projects. Another one is from Oipro Giant. It is a manufacturing project developed in collaboration of Austrian and German companies, universities, research organizations, and here they have created the functionality to combine products coming from different partners having different sizes within the tolerance, but to have an optimal fitting of the parts. The data of the different parts coming from different companies are shared on a data space, here clearly improving the production processes, reducing the waste of parts, and creating and improving the overall efficiency of the projects. Another example called digital road condition monitoring. In a lot of countries, we have the situation that there's a poor state of roads and other mobility infrastructures, which is creating unnecessary economic costs. And the solution here, again, using a data space, is that data providers, software providers, infrastructure providers, and consumers effectively work together to exchange and combine mobility infrastructure data and again AI applications for the analysis. The results can be shared as a service, for example, to city councils to improve the mobility infrastructure conditions. And in a lot of countries in Europe, but also outside of Europe, there's a high demand for this. And the added value by Gaia-X again is the orchestration of the data, software, and the cloud resources in an environment that benefits from transparency, standardized services, open source software, without any login to specific cloud services or platforms. The Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions is one of the main organizations behind what is called X-Road. X-Road originally developed in Estonia, and Estonia is in the meantime in Europe the leading country when it comes to the digitization of public processes. Established since more than 20 years. And X-Road 8, that will be the new version, will be using the Gaia-X Trust Framework, enabling X-Road users, user organizations, and services to meet the requirements of the Gaia-X compliance rules. An excellent example to show that also legacy applications can be integrated into such solutions, sharing data in a trustful manner. And another one from Merlot, which is showing an intelligent career assistant for students, a bit similar to what I explained before, coming from Prometheus, where it here brings together a marketplace where students and organizations can use AI services provided by Schülerkarriere and IMC matching skills, studies requirements, and job or training offers. So here more in the education area. TAMIS is setting up the basis for an audiovisual data hub, solving the challenges of audiovisual productions. And the solution of TAMIS is optimizing the handling of audiovisual metadata and processes for all stakeholders in the audiovisual rights ecosystem. It's doing so by leveraging the ISAN standard identifier. This use case, which is described in our testimonial, illustrates the potential to streamline the audiovisual rights management, delivering significant benefits to all participants in the value chain. And again, the trust framework of Gaia-X is supporting this. This picture shows our actual roadmap. This roadmap is dynamic as we are working in an agile methodology. It is showing the layer of events which we have in Europe, but also globally. Shows the marketing activities with the Gaia-X Academy included, the evangelist program, the different publications we do have, but also campaigns like, for example, Women in Tech we had in preparation for the International Women's Day. Then we have activities for the market adoption, the hub expansion, for example, and the release management of our compliance documents, of the policies and rules, but also of the technical implementation, an implementation which is organized in different releases as it is normally done. In our case, the releases have names of rivers. For example, the actual one, Loire. The next one will be Danube. And finally, here on the bottom, the activities to drive some of our results which become more and more de facto standards. But de facto standards are not yet formal standards. And that's why we are working with standardization organizations to drive them even to formal standards. But this takes normally some time, and it often helps to have de facto standards to solve business problems of end users. As I said at the beginning, we are a member-driven organization, and we are providing benefits to our members. Benefits which can be structured in business and organizational benefits. And here, as the benefit descriptions are self-explanatory, I will not go to every single benefit. We have technological benefits, and as we need to spread the word, a lot of marketing and communication benefits. These are benefits for our members. Again, we are a member-driven organization providing values to our members, and our value proposition is structured according to the different member groups we have, like end users, like cloud and information and communication technology providers, like research and other groups. And in this matrix, you can see which of the value propositions are valid for the different member groups. As we are a member-driven organization, we are inviting you to join Gaia-X, to shape the future of the data infrastructure, to influence and boost your visibility, but also the visibility of the Gaia-X ecosystem, to collaborate in a growing network of end users, of service providers, of cloud providers, and members get exclusive access to some of the resources. Some parts of our results are open source, but some technical support, business opportunities which are created in the ecosystem, they are limited to our members. And the question how to join is simply go onto the webpage Gaia-X.eu and click on join. And here you will have a more detailed overview of the different benefits of Gaia-X. If you're convinced, and hopefully a lot of you will be convinced in addition to the existing members, there's a form which need to be filled out. Send it via email to us, and once accepted and all regulations are done, an onboarding process starts after our board of directors has approved the application in one of its monthly meetings. A bit more about Gaia-X. This is an overview of the events we do have, where we are participating in events, where we have speaker engagement, where partners of us are engaged in events. So you see the calendar for 2025 for the 4 different quarters. We have a lot of publications, and you can find them on our website in the menu point communications, where you see our overall brochure, where you see information about the compliance document and the different labels, the trust framework, and so on. And this is one way to learn more about Gaia-X. We have an even more structured and more interactive way. That's the Gaia-X Academy. Here we are providing training material, and actually we have 17 different courses available in 4 languages. And we have started this last year, have in the meantime more than 950 learners who are using this massive and open online courses. And most of the courses are available for everyone. Some are again limited to members. And there's a specific course, the course number 9, which will lead you to a certification to become, and it is a prerequisite to become a Gaia-X evangelist. And this evangelist program is certifying certain people who are passionate about Gaia-X, who have experience, who have proven experience, who are able to bring this experience also to people who are interested in Gaia-X. And this call for evangelists is asking you, if you are skilled in Gaia-X, simply to apply to become a new evangelist in the Gaia-X ecosystem. And there are different requirements to qualify as a Gaia-X evangelist, and you need to meet 3 essential requirements: to be a Gaia-X member, a hub, a lighthouse project, an ecosystem, a work group, or open source community contributor. You have acquired the before mentioned Academy certification, course number 9. And 1 out of the 3, you are a member of one of the Gaia-X committees. I mentioned them before. You participated in one of the flagship events, or you are engaged in 5 speaker engagements per year with mentioning Gaia-X. And these evangelists have the role to promote Gaia-X, to educate people about Gaia-X, to contribute with their positive feedback and suggestions to the further improvement of our ecosystem, and to collaborate with each other, but also with our partners and the community as such. And benefits of becoming an evangelist are: we are providing speaking opportunities, we are contributing to content, we provide the certification as before mentioned, we are supporting you, we're providing networking opportunities. It is for sure a recognition, highlights your success, and we are even doing specialized events for our evangelists. These are the 6 evangelists we do have so far. So we started the program just a few months ago, and these 6 guys have passed and provided all the requirements I defined before. How to apply? Just send an email to info@gaiax.eu and you will be heard, and you have the chance to become an evangelist. This is an overview of Gaia-X, why we need Gaia-X, what do we do, what are the deliverables, what is Gaia-X not, and how we are structured and how we are working together. Thank you very much. All this presentation, this information is available on the Gaia-X website, and looking forward to meet you in person one day. Thank you.